Hey, everybody, welcome back to another fantastic edition of the His and Her Money Show, where we make it our business to help you take dominion over your money and your life. We're glad that you're here with us because you could be elsewhere, but the fact that you're here rocking with the His and Her Money Show, we are grateful. Do us a favor if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't already done so, leave us a review that lets the platforms know that this is a show that they should tell other people about. So if we've been helpful to you, you can be helpful to us by leaving us a good review on your favorite podcasting platform. We are excited about today's show because we love to bring you guys journeys from the trenches, real life stories of real people who have paid off real debt so you can know that you can make it your reality too. And so we have another fantastic story just like that lined up for today's episode. We're going to be talking with a young lady by the name of Corazon, who's going to talk about her journey to paying off a whole lot of student loans and also building some wealth, investing in property and all that kind of stuff. It can all happen together, y'all. It don't have to be mutually exclusive. And so that's why we wanted to bring you her story. So you can take some good notes and maybe get a little inspiration as you create your own journey towards financial freedom. So we're not going to delay this any further. Let's get Corazon on so we can hear her journey. Hey, Corazon, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here. You have a pretty dope story. You and your husband have been working hard these last few years to get to the spot that you all are at. And so we're glad that you all were able to do it. And now you're here to share how and what happened along the way. But for those who are being introduced to you for the first time, can you say hello to them and then let them know what you're all about?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Corazon from Corazon Akinyi. I teach working professionals how to master their money as a result of the journey that I went through to master my own money and to pay off debt, as you mentioned. So I am here to talk about that, a little bit about that journey and share how we ended up paying off 6 figures of debt.
All right, man, let's do it. Let's lay it out right up front. 6 figures of debt. Talk to us about where you guys have gone. So tell us exactly how much debt that you all paid off. What type of debt was it? And how long did it take you to get to the finish line?
Yes. So we actually had a interesting journey in that when my husband and I got married, we had about $150,000 of debt together. Now, I myself had $131,000 of that debt. That was just specifically my student loan debt. And the rest of it, as you can see, a small percentage was my husband's. And that was his student loan debt as well as his car loan. So when we were engaged, actually, I sat my husband down and I just said, what are we going to do about our overall finances? How are we going to manage money in our marriage? We discussed some of our values, our debt, our credit, and just really laid it out there. And then from there, devised a plan that I had to also convince my husband to be on board for, because I was actually slated to pay off my student loan debts through the loan forgiveness program because I worked in nonprofit. So if you make 10 years of consecutive payments towards that, you can get your student loan debt forgiven. So we started year one of our marriage tackling our smallest piece of debt, which was my husband's car loan, which was like $8,000. We built up an emergency fund. And then we accidentally fell into real estate during that time as well. And then from there, we paid off my husband's student loan debt, which was $12,000. Saved another 6 months of emergency fund, purchased another real estate multifamily property. And then year 3, our goal was to pay off the $131,000, and we paid that off in 14 months.
Woo. All right. Lots of layers to this. I love it. I like it. I like it a lot. So let's go back to where y'all first had to sit down and have this conversation. And how did you feel internally when you realized that the lion's share of the debt that you were all going to have to get out was yours? Like, was that painful? Like for me, when we got married, Ty and I, all the debt was mine. So
Okay.
there's some, there's a little bit of shame and guilt that you're starting this new marriage off in not the best financial situation. And the bulk of the issue that you all have to face came from you. So for the person that's listening that may be where you were back then, how did that feel internally? How did you push through? How did the conversation go?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I will say that to start, because I did have such a lion's share of debt. And we had a strategy per se of tackling my student loan debt through the student loan forgiveness program. So not only was it just this lion's share of debt, it was a change, right? And that I no longer want the government to take care of this for me. We need to figure this out ourselves. And so that was a pivot from what our original plan was. So it was unexpected, I think, a little bit in that sense. But I will say where my husband, I got buy-in from him was the realization that a small amount of percentage at that time were getting approved for student loan forgiveness. Me being held to working in nonprofit, right, where that I could have taken on other opportunities for employment that one could pay me more. But I was being pigeonholed to staying in a specific industry in order to get this loan forgiven. And then conversations about our values and what we do value, and making sure that the decisions that we were making aligned with that, made the discussion a lot easier. My husband was not here for it in the beginning. And then I also had to show him, because he didn't think it was possible to pay off this, 6-figure debt. He was just kind of like, well, how are we even going to do this? Is this even possible? So I also had to lay out kind of the foundation of, this is the strategy. Like, this is how we're going to tackle just our finances overall. And it was never actually meant for us to pay off $131,000 in 14 months. The original goal was actually like 4 years. But as I'm sure you and your wife realize going through this journey, is that you end up building this momentum. As we were knocking down debt, it allowed us to be more intentional about our money. I feel like all things started to work towards our goals as well, right? So that's basically kind of where we went from just, this is like a concept, to now we're in it and decided, and we're just running with it. But it was like when he saw the breakdowns of the numbers, and I had to work backwards, right? This is kind of what our income is. These are our expenses. This is what we have left over. And then this is what we can do with it. And this is what we can do with it in a year. This is what we can do with it in year 2. This is what we can do in year 3. And that's how I broke down the numbers to show him, okay, in like 4 to 5 years, realistically, we can have this debt paid off. And that's when he was bought in.
So it started the realization for you, because a lot of people will look at the number, just a number, and have a similar response to your husband and say, well, how are we going to do that? And for you, it came down to the math.
It did.
So what would you tell the person listening who has this number, whatever their number is? It doesn't have to be the debt load that you had. It could be more, it could be less, it could be right at. But for you doing the math, walk them through that strategy, because that might bring the ease for them.
Yeah.
1, and 2, it might also help them explain to their significant other, like, we can do this. So if they have their overall picture of how much they owe, what do they do from there?
I think that's a great point, because unfortunately, I get so many people since I've paid that debt that are like, good for you, sis, but I could never, so, or, Biden is never getting that for me. And I think a lot of people discount themselves out. Like, they kick themselves out of the game. before they even realize their potential to be in it, right? And to get ahead. And so they never even enter the race to begin with. And that's the unfortunate part. And I think that's where my husband's mindset was. And it took running those numbers. And for example, if you look at your income, you look at your expenses, and it starts with budgeting, right? Like a lot of people don't like the concept of budgeting, but it really truly actually allows you and listeners to be intentional about your money, about where your money goes, giving your money an assignment throughout your journey is going to be important, because otherwise your life, your lifestyle, your bills are going to answer for you as to where your money goes. So we gave our money an assignment. So we wrote out a budget. We allocated 100% of our income to an expense and or savings and or debt. So we looked at our expenses, we looked at our income, whatever we had difference from that, we allocated towards our debt. So if that for you is $1,000 each month, that's $12,000 a year that you can work with. You might want to allocate some of those towards savings. Maybe you allocate $2,000 towards saving and then $10,000 towards debt. The nice thing is that you also don't have to do one thing at a time. We invested, we saved, and we pay down debt. And so then $2,000 a month can go towards savings, $10,000 can go towards debt a year. And you know, in 2 years, you can knock off $20,000 of debt. And we created a pretty much a 5-year plan based off of where we were today. And then every year we adjust because things have happened, right? We've met our goal. We no longer have that specific debt. So what do we do with the money that we're allocating towards that? Income changes. A lot of people keep their budgets the same, and your budget is not meant to be static. It's meant to evolve as much as your life, your lifestyle, your expenses, your income evolve. So every year we reevaluated our 5-year plan and made adjustments as well, but making sure that our money always had an assignment.
Dope. I love the fact that you all took a blended approach. You all were getting out of debt, but you also were saving, and you all were also investing. And you mentioned earlier that you stumbled into your first property. So I'm sure people are curious how that happened. And B, when you were faced with this stumble, was there a conversation like, no, we got to focus on the debt. We can't. And talk us through how you decided to follow the stumble.
I love this
investing.
question because I think people also think you have to be so stringent with your finances. Like, oh, we started here, we created this plan. You can't be flexible. And we've definitely allowed for opportunities and allowed ourselves to be flexible with our plan. So we stumbled into real estate because we saw a cheap property. I think it must have been like $25,000, something like that. We were like, we want to see that. That sounds around our budget. And so, and you know, we were making significantly less than what we're making now. Income increases was part of our strategy. So we messaged our realtor. We went to see the property and it was terrible. It was trash. It was terrible. But for us, that was the little bit that we needed to get started. Unfortunately, it was a kind of a roller coaster experience from there because we didn't have a lot of money to allocate towards a rental property. But the beauty about real estate is there's so many different ways to get in. So we started the traditional route. We invested in a property that's in a MLS. We
was it the $25,000 property?
No, we did that.
Oh, okay. I'm like, man, wait a minute now.
So what ended up happening is we wanted to see more. We wanted to see more properties. We decided we wanted to see multifamilies, which our realtor thought we were crazy because we had a shoestring budget. Let's be real. And it was so bad. We probably overall saw about like 55 properties because, again, with the budget that we had, we only had a certain selection of properties, and most of what we saw was not pretty. So it was actually so bad. I live in Ohio. We started looking in Kentucky because properties are cheaper in Kentucky and it's not far from us. And both our realtors in Kentucky and Ohio tried to convince us to go with single family properties because of our budget. Uh, they were like, we suggest maybe you should consider. But I was like, no. For us, it was a numbers game for me again, right? Like, I want to see a specific profit come out of this, and we just have to stick to our guns on this. So we did, but it resulted us seeing multiple properties, getting told no, and then finally we landed on our first multifamily property. We paid $83,000 for it.
How many units?
It's two doors. And we do, at that time, I think we were making like $500 in a month, of take home. It was like a little over 400, 460, something like that.
That's good.
It is pretty good. But I had a plan for that too. I was like, this is still not enough. Most people know if you're in real estate, it's not like a get rich scheme. Like most people make only a couple hundred per property per single family. So I knew I wanted to flip or make some updates to the property to increase the rent. And then we also refinanced as a result of the pandemic when interest rates were really low, to get us to $900 of income a month.
Wow.
Yeah. So now don't start coming to Ohio, y'all.
So you did end up, because you said you were looking in two states. So this first property was back in Ohio.
This was in Ohio.
So did you all manage it yourselves? Did you all rehab it yourselves? Talk about because you're doing all this in the midst of paying off debt.
We're doing all of this while saving for an emergency fund. This was year one. We knew nothing. So we were doing this while paying off debt, while saving our emergency fund. And then we had to have the money to put down 25%. So, because if it's an investment property, we already had a condo. You have to put down a higher percentage in order to acquire the property if it's considered a true investment. Yep. And then we actually ended up buying a second property that was actually part of our debt freedom journey. And we house hacked that, meaning that we lived on one side, rented out the other. And that's how we reduced actually our monthly mortgage by almost $1,000. And that money went towards paying off debt.
Man, okay. So we got to jump in these numbers here. Property one, we found it in Ohio, two unit.
2 units.
And at first, you got it, had to put 25% down. Did you have to put money towards rehab? What I want to know is this. How are you all, what are the conversations like that you and your husband are having? You're looking at 50 properties. Whatever property we get, we're going to need 25% down. Whatever property we get, because we're looking at lower price points, it's going to have to be a rehab. So how are y'all month to month as you all are talking through your finances? This is going towards debt. Yeah. This is going towards emergency fund. This is going towards down payment or rehab costs. Like, help us organize ourselves if people want to follow kind of the blueprint that you and your husband laid out.
Yeah. So we did similarly post this because we fell into this. We didn't plan this, and I'm a planner. So if you can't tell already. So what we ended up having to do because it was actually our first property together. first investment property together, is we had to take money that we brought into the marriage. So half of the money from the investment was money that we had saved individually. And then the other half was savings together. So that's actually why in year 2, we actually ended up having to allocate some of our initial emergency fund money towards the investment. So we
talk about that,
yeah,
because that's like sacrilegious
it is. Some
in
people are
this
going to be
world.
like, don't, no, 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 no.
So how did you all come to that conclusion? Like, this is risky, but we can make this work.
So you have to figure out, if you are interested in real estate, what your strategy is going to be. Some people invest in real estate and they're interested in flipping, right? So they want to make the money up front. They want to flip that money, and they want to have the large amount of sums of money from flipping that money. That's not an interest, at least right now, for us. I'm interested in money I can live on a month-to-month basis.
Cash flow.
I'm interested in cash flow. So to us, that's not risky. But for a flipper, right, where you may have to put a lot more money in projects and renovations, and you're not interested in the month-to-month cash flow, for which to me translates to freedom, that may be a big deal. So I think figuring out first, what's your overall real estate? Are you interested in flipping? Are you interested in buying and holding and cash flow? Are you interested in being a wholesaler where, well, that's kind of like your job, like that's kind of a job, right? And you're getting smaller wins. Or are you completely want to be passive and invest in REITs, right? So there's a lot of different ways to go into real estate. We're buy and hold. We're interested in cash flow. So we ended up we're year 1, we're supposed to be saving a 1-year emergency fund. So we took that, let's say $1,200 that we were able to put away each month, we split that into our different buckets, savings and debt. But now we have this real estate that this savings original bucket was supposed to go into, got split in half, and that money was now going into investments.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you took the risk. It paid off. You got the first property. Put 25% down. How much did you, or you don't have to say how much, but like, was there a lot that had to also go into rehabbing the place?
No. So the nice thing, we also, because we were new investors in real estate, we didn't want anything with a bunch of work. Everything was strictly cosmetic to uplift the property in itself and make it just like more viable for renters. So it didn't need a lot of work. When we specifically went through the MLS, did our inspections, and it was in great condition. The people took care of it. And so we didn't have a lot of issues. So it's just cosmetic. And we actually ended up utilizing the money that we had in our first year of profits to do the renovations. I think it was less than 10,000. So I want to say it was between like 6 and 8 for cosmetic.
And were you all running it yourself?
Yep.
Or did you get a property manager?
We strictly run it ourselves. We actually have moved cities. We still property manage that property, and do it ourselves from a different city.
So now what became the plan now that you had this new vehicle that was bringing in additional cash flow? It started off at 500. Then you all took advantage of the interest rates going down and refinanced. And now your cash flow was 900.
Yep.
Are you allocating this towards your 3 buckets of saving, investing, and the debt payoff? Are you throwing some back toward the house? Like, talk us through, now that you have this new amount of cash flow, in addition to you all salaries, how did you all continue the process from there?
Yeah. So the first thing we do is always put money aside. So we protect ourselves in our business, which is real estate, in our personal lives, which is our having an emergency fund. And then post that, we finally ended up allocated $20,000 from real estate to the overall $131,000 of debt. But we didn't do that until year 3. We saved pretty much the money. We did the renovations the first year that allowed us to increase our rent. And then year 2, we just continue to save money. We have money saved and put aside for things happen all the time with houses, right? And it's thousands of dollars to fix it. So we keep our emergency fund as well for our real estate. And then we put $20,000 towards that last $131,000 student loan payment.
Legal & General America is the leader in low-cost term life insurance.
For nearly 70 years, Legal & General America has been providing financial protection to over 1.3 million families and businesses.
LGA makes understanding and applying for life insurance easy.
You can get a free quote by simply going to hisandhermoney.com/LGA.
Talk about, because you said you're a planner and you're organized. Talk about how all this is organized. Because some people are like, yo, that sounds amazing. They're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Like, is there certain accounts that strictly deal with real estate, certain accounts that this is the money that's going towards debt? Like, how did you organize? Because you got money coming from 2 salaries, real estate, but you also got money going toward debt, money going towards emergency fund, money going towards more real estate. So help people kind of figure out, how can they get organized?
Yes, that's a great question. Because we've learned as we've gone and as we've had different goals within just our personal finances, we've had to split things up. So our accounts, we have 3 accounts. We have our checking account, we have our short-term savings, and we have a somewhat more long-term savings account. So our checking account is all of our bills. We also, one thing I didn't mention, we live off of one income. This was done intentionally when we got married. You know, we asked ourselves the question of how could we maintain our expenses on one income. This has ended up blessing us in a lot of different ways that we didn't even realize, because then, for example, pandemic happened. A lot of people lost jobs. So this has actually ended up being another level of protection and barrier for us by organizing our finances and also keeping us in check, because if it falls outside of this, we can't afford it. So by doing that early on, we kind of set the level of expectation of managing our money. So actually, all of our income from my husband's goes into one account. All of my income goes into another account, and that is utilized for savings, for debt, and just some other, for our cash envelopes. So we've got our checking account that my husband's income goes into. We've got our savings, which is actually our travel fund. When I talked about what we value, and a lot of people think, oh, you can't have any fun or do anything for yourself when you're on this debt freedom journey. This is what we value. This is what we don't. This is what we'll make room for. This is what we're going to reduce. So we made room for travel. We have a travel budget. We have a travel account. Then our third account is our emergency fund. It's our savings account. So those are our 3 accounts. And then we have a whole other account for our real estate. Yeah.
And then another strategic move that you all made was in deciding that you were going to sell the condo that was your primary residence and that you all were going to engage in a house hack,
Yes.
which you said reduced your expenses by like $1,000. So talk us through that journey.
Yeah. So as I started getting really into and passionate about real estate, I would always hear the term house hack. So we basically said our next property for ourselves we're going to house hack. We're going to live on one side. We're going to rent out the rest of the property so that we can save additional income. So that's all this is about, right? It's about reducing your expenses so that you can allocate more of it towards your overall vision, whether that's investing, whether that's saving, that's paying down debt, or building a business. So we've done that. And income increases through real estate, income increases through our personal employment, and reducing overall expenses. So house hacking was the best way. Most people's largest expense is their home and where they live and where they dwell. So we found a property, we did the calculations, we did the math. We saw how much we were going to save in comparison to how much we were paying in mortgage, and we just went for it. And as a result of that, we save about $900 plus, give or take, on our actual living expenses from our previous property. And it's a dual purpose because when we leave here, we actually are building our next home. We will have 2 people paying for the property, and that'll be income that we'll be able to take home.
And this was, I'm assuming, a different experience from a financing standpoint because you're actually living in it. So you didn't have to put 25% down.
We
correct?
didn't. We only had to put, I think we put 3.5% down, so that's the beauty of house hacking. I would always tell anybody, your first house, just house hack.
Now, talk us through, we've added these 2 properties to the mix.
Yep.
You guys tapped into the emergency fund. I'm assuming you put it back. So now walk us to how did we, because we haven't really talked a lot about, different milestones that you were hitting as far as debt payment along the way. So bring us up to speed on, in the midst of all this, that you were knocking out $150,000 of debt.
We really were. It's wild because, like I said, we just built the momentum. We thought this was going to be a 5-year plus journey that ended up just being 3 years. So as we pay down my husband's car, year 1, $8,000 knocked off. We did the debt snowball method. We rolled the amount that we were paying off, which was actually $600. At that time, his payment was $300. We added $300 to that. So now we have $600 that we're paying towards his car loan. Once that was paid, we took that $600, we utilized that $600 on top of what we were already paying for his student loans. So that $12,000 got paid off in year 2. We rolled over that $600 plus the $400 that was being paid. That's $1,000 now that we have. We rolled that into my student loan payment that we were making payments on, which I think was like $300 to $400. So now we have $1,400 that can be allocated because we just kept rolling the money over. What a lot of people do is they end up just spending the money, right? Like instead of rolling it over, it's like, oh, I got $200 additional dollars. Now I can spend it on something else that I don't really need. So that's what we've ended up doing. We did the snowball method and we kept rolling it over until the debt was paid off. We increased our income almost collectively as a couple, doubled our income through this journey.
Now, can you give any advice or wisdom on that? Because that doesn't happen accidentally.
It doesn't. But it's the intent. We said we need to make more money. Like we simply, that's it. Like we need to figure out how to make more money. So the first thing actually for me, and I've talked about this a couple times, I actually wasn't being equitably paid at the work that I was doing. So I started advocating for myself. Hey, I put a packet together. I said, this is the market. This is what people are making for my role in the market. This is what, through Glassdoor, right? This is what I'm seeing made internally. These are my job functions and my duties. This is how I match up with that, and showcasing that I meet 100% of what this role entails and why I should be compensated. And these are my accomplishments. And so I started internally, but we started looking externally too, so, and then while we were looking externally, reviewing salaries for those positions before we even applied, because there's no point. You're not going to pay me. So you got to pay me first. And then while in not interview process, but when we were getting offers, this is what I want to make. Per my research that I've already done, I see that the salary for this position is this amount, and therefore this is how much I would like to be compensated for the job. So being very intentional, I think that's very important for minorities, for Black people, to advocate for ourselves when it comes to salaries, internally making sure that we're equitably paid against our counterparts, but then also advocating for us when we get offers. That's a huge mistake that we're making, is not saying, no, I've done my research and this is how much I expect to make in this role.
So Glassdoor, you go in there and you put in the position that you're applying for, and it gives you some data.
It does.
Were there other sources of information that you pull from to help you come with a strong case?
Yeah. So internally, I was just able to pull up the salary range. You can talk to HR, your company, say, hey, what is the range for this role that I'm in? Because sometimes they don't even disclose that, right? So knowing, because I got promoted actually internally. So, hey, what is the actual range for my position? And then, okay, I want to be making, I have this amount of job experience. I expect to be making at least at the mid or above, wherever you see. And then, yes, Glassdoor has a tool that you can utilize to look at the market salaries for your jobs. So I included that in my packet, along with where the mid fell for the position for me. I also did an evaluation of my counterparts, and I wrote in, these are all the managers at our companies, at our company, how many staff they report to them in comparison to myself. And therefore,
come on. You digging in there.
Oh, I was not giving them any room to play with me, because they gonna play in our face. That's one thing they are gonna do. Wow. That's guaranteed. They're gonna play in your face. So I was not playing. So I came correct, because one time I actually asked for a pay raise, and I will never forget. My CEO was like, "Why?" So I learned then. Yeah, he was like, he was like, for what? Why should I give you more money? And that was my first lesson in justification. And I was able to justify it even there right off the bat, but coming prepared, I wasn't prepared for the question. And so being prepared, and when you're advocating for yourself, is equally as important. Being able to say, this is the work that I've done. This is the additional responsibilities that you've given me outside of my scope of work that I am doing. And these are my accomplishments, So I don't come incorrect. It's not like I'm over here. I've been a bum for 6 months. I want some money. It's like, no, this is what I've done for you guys on top of it. And I need it very clear. And I gave a packet to whoever needed one. You need a packet? Do you need a packet? Does your boss need a packet? So,
Wow. And I'm assuming that you created a package for your husband on his journey.
you know, it's funny. He's really good at this. I feel like men, this is why it's also important for us women to advocate for myself. My husband would be like, it's raining today. Can I have some more money? It was the pandemic. Like, people are getting laid off. He was like, he asked for a pay increase. And I was like, I'm just trying to make sure you got a job, you know? Like, they were like taking money out of the travel budget to give him, you know? And I'm like, and when I'm doing my calls, he's in the background, like, ask him, ask him if they can add this. So
awesome.
Yeah.
On this 3-year journey that you all went on, this particular 3-year journey, talk about how you all remain a unified front with all the twists and turns, all the pivots, all the remixes. How did y'all make sure as husband and wife that y'all stayed unified on this journey?
Yeah, that's a great question again. Because it's not always, I don't want to say easy, because what I've realized in this journey is that sometimes we have different visions. Our values remain the same, but how we go about it can be different. So I love real estate. My husband, he's like, it's okay. I'm not like I will listen to podcasts every day, all day about it. He likes investing, like traditional stocks. We've invested in businesses, silent investing. So he likes that type. He actually joined a Black male investment group. And in Ohio, they came together. And so that's his type of investing, right? But we don't argue about money. We don't argue about money because of the way that we set up our finances. We have different roles in how we function in our finances. And this we've played off of our strengths and our weaknesses. We have cash envelopes. I'm not going to get the cash money out. I'm just going to forget. Like, you leave it to me, we're going to be without that money. He likes to be out and about running air. He goes to pick up the money, right? Like, I'm strategy. Like, I love this strategy. I do our planning and we update our finances together, and we stay up to date on it together as a team. We've just decided that what we do is going to be together and as a team. So we pay off our debt. My debt was his debt, you know? Our investments, we invest together. Business, even if we do businesses separately, we still make sure that it's in alignment and we communicate about it. So we've never had any issues, no fights about money. We allow ourselves an allocation of funding from our budget for ourselves. He spends what he wants on it. I spend what I want on it. That was from seeing other couples. Like, I like to see how other people are doing their finances. I asked, like, I don't know how many couples before we got married, how do you do your finances? And if I saw that they were arguing all the time, I was like, I'm not doing that. We're gonna rule that one out. So that's basically how we operate and run our finances and collaborate really as a team and operate as a team.
Nice. Now, some people are watching live because they're His and Her Money Pro members. If you want more information, go to hisandhermoneypro.com. Now, Regina's watching and she was wondering, do you have like a written guide where you outline all these steps that you took to end up in the place that you're at?
That's a great question. I guess I have a guide in the sense of I have courses that go through with my debt, finances, budgeting, investing, which is my Master Your Money course. So basically everything that we've done is rolled up into that.
All right. Tell everybody how to get to it.
I have a website, Corazon Akinyi.com. Corazon is CORAZON. Akinyi is AKINYI.com.
And we'll be sure to have a link in the show notes of this episode. Now, take us to that moment. Y'all been working hard,
Woo.
and the day arrived where you all made your very last debt payment. Some people, they dream about that day. They're wondering what it's like. So paint the picture. How did it go?
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, I had a video that went viral of me paying off my student loan debt because we paid it all in one full payment. We saved up just in case Biden did decide to do something. We were like, we're going to be responsible, but we're not going to be stupid. So we saved it up till the last minute, waiting to see if Biden was going to do anything. We didn't have to pay because there's the student loan freeze. So we just really took advantage of that, saved it all up, and made one full swoop payment.
How much was that one?
That was $131,000. All in one call. Broke in one call.
So how'd it go? How'd that feel? I mean, that's a big number to let go of.
Ooh, it's a lot of money. I want to do it. I'm not gonna lie. There were moments it was like, we should buy some properties. We should buy some houses. We should buy a building. There's so much conflicting things that had go every month. It was like, should we do something else with this money? But we stuck to it. And it was a mix of emotions because it is so much money. We just literally gave away in one day. But it was relief. It's crazy because I avoided Sallie Mae for a long time. I'm going to be real with y'all. And it wasn't until the last few years, one, that I was even getting current. And then it's like I went from not paying, avoiding Sallie Mae, getting current, to paying $131,000. And to me, I always think about, what if I never started? I would still be in the same position I was yesterday. And I try not to think like this because it's like, what if I started even sooner? I was avoiding her. I was, and not only that, it was a disservice to myself because I accrued $30,000 of interest over time. So I'm giving them money on top of what not just my student loan balance was, but I'm giving them more money on top of that before I even help myself on reducing my overall student loan payment. I'm doing nothing for myself because I'm paying interest. I'm not even paying any principal. I'm not reducing my overall debt down. It's just going up. So it's it was a sense of just relief, this burden, it's gone. And now we have the freedom to, just continue this journey really, to work on the freedom part.
So that leads to my last question. What's next?
What's next? We just bought another property. So we have 6 stores now. The next year, we're going to be trying to acquire additional rental properties. We're trying to match our income. So we're really trying to work towards this debt freedom. And so we're investing, when we were in that season of paying down debt, we were in a different season. We're putting seeds right in the ground. And now it's time for it to bear fruit, right? But we're also investing still. So we're still putting some seeds down, investing in real estate, investing in businesses. We're now in our growth season, and the money that we were taking to do and invest in pay down debt, we're taking it home for real freedom.
Nice. And I think you mentioned it a couple of times. And so if somebody heard you talk about we invest in businesses silently,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah. So we've basically, we have money, we've saved money to be able to invest it. And investment doesn't always have to be, we always hear about real estate, and you always hear about stocks, but you don't really hear about businesses and being able to invest in real estate, in businesses. And a lot of businesses actually need capital. So we actually invested, our first way of just jumping into this space was a Black owned wholesale bourbon company.
How'd you even find an opportunity?
Yeah. So actually this investment, being connected with this investment group, so opportunities that come to that investment group, then individually can be taken to invest yourself. So, but also knowing people, so being involved in investment groups like real estate. So we're involved in real estate groups within our city. Your local contractors and developers that know about new projects. So we also are a silent investor in a restaurant. That was a developer. So sometimes even just knowing the right people, knowing what's going on in your city, because there's so much capital that's needed in businesses, and I think especially in Black businesses. So being able to help and put fruits and seeds into some of those is kind of another passion of ours.
Nice.
Yeah.
And as we get ready to conclude, there may be somebody listening who inspired by your story, but when they look at their numbers and their situation and they become a little intimidated about whether or not they have what it takes to be able to accomplish what you and your husband accomplished, what words of encouragement would you give to that person if you had a chance to talk to them?
Man, just start, and if that means it doesn't mean you have to pay off your debt tomorrow. It can mean you start by organizing your finances. It could mean that you are starting to look at your expenses to see where you're at. It can mean opening up and looking at your credit report, right? Because those are the foundational things. It means pulling out that budget, putting numbers together, but it's so important to just start, because you could be missing out on a lifetime of freedom by not. So I think that's the first place, is just getting organized, seeing where you're at, and then going from there and creating a plan. But you have to start.
Nice. Now, if people want to keep up with you on your journey, how can they find you on social media?
I'm Corazon Akinyi Finance on Instagram and Facebook.
All right. We'll be sure to have that in the show notes of this episode as well. Corazon, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming
so
by
much
and sharing this incredible journey with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was great to meet you all.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another fantastic, inspirational story just for you. Now, hopefully you won't just take this as inspiration, but you'll take it as an encouragement to take action. We want you to create a story for yourself. Everybody deserves freedom, and that includes you. So if you have to, rewind this and listen again and encourage yourself one more time, just so you can put one foot in front of the other and get to moving. That's all we got for this time, guys. It's been great. Until next time, peace.